Hello and welcome to your Human Rights and Justice program, Project Justice. I am Mutaba Moran. A few months ago, Amnesty International Nigeria released a report exposing Nigeria's human rights record in the past 12 months. The contents were quite damaging on the country's human rights image internationally. It detailed how Nigeria's security forces, led by its military, embarked on, quote, a chilling campaign of extrajudicial executions and violence, resulting in the deaths of at least 150 peaceful pro-Biafran protesters in the southeast of the country. Now let's give you a brief perspective to this. Secessionist campaigns are not new to the southeast part of Nigeria. The first major push led to a bloody civil war between 1967 and 1970, dubbed the Biafran War. The Nigerian state engaged the Biafran forces in a brutal and decisive military campaign that led to the eventual surrender of Biafran forces and its leader, late Odumegwu Ojukwu, fleeing into exile. Though no victor and vanquished declaration was made, several years later, the wounds of that brutal conflict appears far from being healed. Every now and then, different poorly organized groups, buoyed by the civil war sentiment, engage in agitation for a separate state. There was the movement for the actualization of the sovereign state of Biafra, Masob, led by Ralph Uwazurike, and a band of largely ragtag civil war veterans. After suffering a series of detentions and trial, their agitation somewhat ebbed away. But there came the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB. This group, led by young, vibrant men, was seen as the latest threat, carrying on from where the forebears stopped. But the Nigerian government will not take any of such threats, viewing such acts as treasonable, especially as it often stated position of the indissolubility of the sovereign entity of Nigeria. The leaders of the new group, Nnamdi Kanu and his cohorts, were arrested and are facing charges of treasonable felony. The government had refused to obey the October 2015 court order for their release. Two other bail requests have, however, been turned down by two different judges, with another bail ruling expected in April. The developments, observers note, have emboldened and further influenced agitation in the southeastern part of the country. Amnesty International claimed the clampdown on the so-called peaceful agitators by security agents resulted in 150 deaths. They were attacked during demonstrations and gatherings between August 2015 and August 2016, according to Mahmoud Kamara, the organization's interim director for Nigeria. Project Justice had sought further verification from Amnesty International some weeks ago.
We did an intense research and documented the killing of IPOB members on not just one occasion, not just two, but on several occasions where they gathered to have a peaceful protest. We documented the killings in Nkwo. We also documented killings at Onitsha Bridge. We also documented killings at Asaba. So what we're saying is that the military extrajudiciously executed IPOB protesters who were unarmed, who were just there to carry out their peaceful protest. Because at Amnesty, we believe that a peaceful protest is a human right, and that is why we have continued to call on the Nigerian government to ensure that they conduct investigations, independent, impartial ones, into exactly what took place.
Some persons have tried to discredit the report, especially the Nigerian government, saying the report was based on hearsay evidence, because you yourself have admitted that you dealt with about 87 videos and witness testimonies and photographs as well from the location where some of these alleged killings and right abuses took place. How do you respond to that?
What I'll say is that before we put out any research, we always ensure that our research findings go through a quality assurance process. At the same time, we do a lot of forensic examination of what we gather when we go out on the field, because we have our researchers out there on the field who carry out this research. So we're not just basing findings on hearsay, not just on witness testimonies, but as well as forensic evidence.
The Nigerian government, the military in particular, have accused the Amnesty International of not seeking their point of view of your investigations and the documentations you made before going public with your report, and have said that alone discredits what the report tends to portray.
This is not the first time that we are issuing reports about human rights violations, not just in Nigeria. Let me remind you that Amnesty works in over 156 countries across the globe, where we publish reports based on evidence from our findings.
The reverberation that has followed Amnesty's claims have been hanging like a dark cloud. The former Director of Defense Information, Brigadier General Rabi Abubakar, had vehemently challenged the veracity of the report. Project Justice also reported on that.
There is no iota of proof in what they said. And I'm switching from inside, as an insider. You cannot ask people who are victims and who are the victims. Who are the victims? Who are those victims? Where were they where they were? And what were their motives, for instance? Are you saying that we should allow insecurity to perpetuate itself? Are we saying that we should condone or create a situation where the country becomes an animal farm? This is a sovereign nation. This is, a dignified nation for that matter. But Amnesty International, as I'm speaking with you, has never one day approached the military hierarchy to find out what we were doing. You understand? So you cannot just make a report and expect it to be accepted by a key stakeholders that you deliberately refuse to go and interface with him.
The denial has, however, not dissipated the stormy clouds generated by the report. Amnesty International Nigeria has since had its office occupied by a sponsored group demanding the leave Nigeria.
Amnesty Citizen action against Amnesty International, and we shall continue until they vacate this country for better. We shall not resort to any unlawful means. They have lied against us that we have mobs that are vandalizing our property. I am glad pressmen are there and security men are there. Even one flower from Amnesty International premises was not touched. So you can see that there are people who are used to telling lies. There are people who are used to lies. There are people who talk in trade is lies. And we can no longer tolerate that. Let me remind you of something. We can't excuse our military from committing one or two atrocities. It is not possible anywhere in the world. You must have bad eggs. Just like the Amnesty International have bad eggs. Even in Vatican, there must be bad eggs. We can't say we don't have military who have violated one human right or the other. No. And we're also saying that in every conflict, particularly warfare, that has to do with insurgents or the act of war, there must be casualty. There must be some collateral damage. There must be some unintended casualty. That which we are doing today, which is a burial, we are expecting that within the next 24 hours, we will receive a report from Amnesty International to the international community that high report in Nigeria is fraudulent, malicious, and indicting negatively without any scrupulous understanding of the operations of Boko Haram in Nigeria. Neither have they come to reality with Boko Haram insurgent members in the northeast. But they are being sponsored. Anything short of this report we will not take.
Photographs have since emerged to show that the crowd was a rented one, paid by unknown groups to occupy Amnesty International's office. They were a bunch of unpaid jobless people, escorted curiously under the police protection. While all the protest has been on, it appears the Nigerian human rights community have been silent, except for a few chirps and mutterings here and there. The Human Rights Writers Association's convener, Emmanuel Omubiko, speaks to Project Justice on this issue.
Thank you very much, Omubiko, for bringing us this time.
Thank you.
How has the Human Rights Writers Association responded to the report of Amnesty International on brutal killings allegedly perpetrated by Nigerian security agencies?
Yeah, thank you. I think it's a thing of joy that a globally reputable organization like Amnesty International stepped into this controversy of extrajudicial killings, especially the killings of unarmed protesters in the southeast of Nigeria under the aegis of the indigenous people of Biafra. Previously, Amnesty has consistently focused her attention on the northeast of Nigeria. You understand? It appears that Amnesty was basically concerned about issues that has to do with human rights that are happening in the northeast, especially as it pertains to the terrorists themselves. So at a time, Amnesty seems to be generating a mistaken identity as a group that defends terrorists in Nigeria, particularly. But with time, especially since Amnesty International decided to locate an office, a physical office in Nigeria, in Abuja, sometime last year, Amnesty has truly started reporting Nigeria, qualitatively. So the reports that was given by Amnesty International, the 2016, I think 2016 and 2017 World Human Rights Report as it pertains to Nigeria, with specific reference to the brutal killings of unarmed protesters by the military operatives, and not just the military, even the police, is factually correct. In fact, Amnesty International's report is not comprehensive enough. I think they only wrote and documented the killings that they can physically verify. Maybe that they have the video evidence, that they have the photographic evidence, and they even have the medical evidence. These are the ones they just documented. There are people that were slaughtered, people who were members of IPOB or sympathizers that were slaughtered by soldiers and police that simply disappeared without any trace. Those ones are not documented by Amnesty International. So I wonder why this kind of noise all over the place, amongst government officials, among the military commanders, about this Amnesty International reports. This is not the first time that Amnesty International has been issuing reports around the world. Amnesty International even issues reports that indicts Western powers. You understand?
How do you evaluate the response of the Nigerian authorities to the Amnesty International's report?
It's quite unfortunate. It's very sad that a global organization like Amnesty International issued a report. Then the next thing that follows was a rash of reactions from military spokespersons, especially the former spokesperson of the defense headquarters, Rabe Abubakar, Brigadier General, who at the spur of the moment, just based on reflex action, dismissed the entire report as malicious, even before the reports reached them, even before they were able, because the reports is almost all over the place on the internet. Some of them have not even taken their time to read through the reports, but have started dismissing the report as fabricated. You understand? Then suddenly, the same military establishment that dismissed this report as not verifiable is now spending taxpayers' money to set up a committee to reinvestigate the already investigated cases of human rights violations as compiled by Amnesty International. It doesn't make sense.
Is that not what we would have expected them to do, to investigate?
It should have been done
people
ab initio. That ought to have been done. You don't need to wait for Amnesty to issue a report indicting you. disgracing Nigeria as a country, because this Amnesty International report has far-reaching implications. It's not the way they treat some of us who have been operating in this country as, local activists. So most times, government don't even take us serious. But no matter how you take us or leave us, even Amnesty cannot even operate without the local activists. You understand? Because they get their reports from the people that are on ground. So anybody who tells you that Amnesty International fabricates any story, that person's mental faculty need to be re-examined, because Amnesty International will never write any report without consulting NGOs who are operating in the different parts of the country. They work with people who are on ground. They don't just sit down and just write, thesis as a report. You understand? So the army, the military, ought to have a mechanism in place, which even Lieutenant General Tukur Buratai, established. He actually established a mechanism, an office. Immediately he was sworn in as Chief of Army Staff. It's one of the things that endeared him to some of us initially. You understand? He set up a unit basically responsible for investigating such kind of crimes and criminality among soldiers.
Is it not also disturbing that it had to take an Amnesty International Nigeria to come out with these investigations and these reports? Well, we even have a National Human Rights Commission in Nigeria, and obviously they've received a series of reports on the issues happening in the northeast and also the southeast part of the country in terms of agitations for secession going on there. They've received these reports as well. What is happening? Is this not an indictment on the indigenous human rights bodies, especially the National Human Rights Commission?
I think it's a disgrace that Nigeria has an agency of government, not just Human Rights Commission. National Human Rights Commission is not just like any other, ordinary agency of the federal government, like one of these parastatals or one of these agencies. It is a government agency, yes, but it also has international recognition because it was set up basically following the Paris Principle, following an agreement that was reached at the United Nations Human Rights Council. So it's an international kind of ombudsman. So it's quite unfortunate that the people who were at the helm of affairs in that commission prior to last year's release of the report by Amnesty International, the person that was the executive secretary was not interested in fighting and combating human rights violations. He was, I think, more or less enjoying the office, executive office of executive secretary. Public office, government office, enjoying things that go with it, the juicy salaries and everything that goes with it. And he's not actually working, he did not actually work to advance the human rights of Nigerians. We were shouting. Groups, organizations all over the country have done reports, series of reports regarding extrajudicial killings. The reason why you are even hearing about this is because Amnesty International took it up and documented it and specifically mentioned IPOB, which is an area that Amnesty usually don't normally focus her attention on. Amnesty was always known for focusing attention on the counter-terror war in the Northeast. So for you to now deploy soldiers to just open fire on armed civilian protesters, women, old men, youth, traders, people, because basically members of IPOB are just the commoners. You may call them just, but these are the real people. These are the members of IPOB, the traders, people that control the informal sector of the economy. They have other members who are also very well read, but you don't see them come out on the street. But the real people who, even when it is time for election, are the people that actually come out to vote for these politicians, were the people that came out and said, enough is enough. The maltreatment of this section of this country that is called the Southeast must be redressed. And in their own kind of thinking, they think having a separate state is their solution. You understand? So what a government, civilian government is expected to do is to do the most simplest of things, conduct a referendum, and people will vote. There are a lot of people like us in the Southeast who want Nigeria to continue as Nigeria, though not the dysfunctional kind of country that we have right now. That will be restructured. In fact, more than 75% of the Southeasterners, want that.
What does it say about the Nigerian government's commitment to even defending human rights itself when the commission has been without a board for, I think, about 2 or 3 months now, since the expiration of the tenure of former executive secretary, and over a year since the expiration of the tenure of the chairman of the board? governing council, Chidori.
Yeah, it tells you how unimportant it is to them, to the government officials at the highest level, for the fact that human rights violations is not something that affects only the poor. It's something that affects everybody. So if the National Human Rights Commission has been there, and the commission officials are scared of even interrogating certain government officials. For instance, how many times have they invited the DG of DSS? They cannot now. They don't have the courage to invite the DG of DSS to say, we have reports of human rights violations, that you are detaining people arbitrarily or for extra-constitutionally. They won't do that. How many times have they invited, except for the Chief of Army Staff, who has shown some kind of, I don't know how to call it now, disposition towards human rights. You understand? I don't know what gave him that motivation. I'm talking of the current Chief of Army Staff, who is the only person that has once in a while has been invited by National Human Rights Commission, and he has showed up, he has gone there. You understand? But how many times have they invited the DG of DSS? How many times have they invited the acting executive chairman of the EFCC, a commission where a particular Nigerian went in there within 24 hours, the person died in their custody? How many times has the Human Rights Commission gone to look at the condition of inmates in that EFCC? Except for the time that the management of National Human Rights Commission were virtually hired as propaganda outfit by EFCC. That was the time they just went there on a choreographed kind of visit to now say the detention facilities are okay. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make sense. It's a disgrace.
You also had the Human Rights Commission going to Borno to dismiss the report of the Amnesty International.
A top official of that commission that dismissed Amnesty International reports as it pertains to the Northeast was included in the Nigerian Army's investigative committee. A man who has already voiced out, an institution that has already voiced out her jaundiced opinion on a matter is being set up to investigate that same matter. Don't we have shame in this country?
All right. You have in the past criticized Amnesty International over its reports against the Nigerian military. What is different now?
The reason why some of us were not happy with Amnesty was because you don't sit in your cozy office somewhere in London or somewhere, wherever, to say this is what is happening in Nigeria. But now Amnesty...
The credibility of the report they used to release...
It does. Why should the government sponsor hungry Nigerians that should be battling to make a living, now collecting 1,000 naira to go and obstruct Amnesty International's office? This is a crime against humanity. It should stop.
If there is one thing that Amnesty report has achieved, it has jolted the government and its various enforcement agencies to Nigeria's deteriorating human rights record. Impunity in the handling of herdsmen, killings across the country, blatant disobedience of court orders, etc. It is worthy of note that this is not the first time the organization will be releasing such controversial and damning reports on Nigeria. What followed were not a band of paid protesters to challenge a report, but constructive engagement with the international community to disprove its content. With the Nigerian National Human Rights Commission in a state of operational hibernation and several independent indigenous rights groups tongue-tied to everyday reported abuses, the call for the exit of Amnesty International, perhaps the only vocal body on rights issues left in Nigeria, begs a question: who will speak for the oppressed in Nigeria? We leave you with that thought, and that's Project Justice for this week. Be sure to reach us on Twitter. Our handle is @ProJusticeLive. On Facebook as well, you can reach us, and on YouTube. Just click on Project Justice. I am Mutuba Moran. See you next week.